Distant Wars 2, the review of impressive strategy, today in our YouTube channel. Welcome back, our little subscribers and viewers, and those who didn't subscribe to the button, so you have the chance to subscribe right now. And let's move to the review. Describing a video game is more or less difficult depending on the level of complexity of the object you want to try to tell. In general, the more systems there are, the more difficult it becomes, as much as unless to go and detail them all. Because the real risk is to lose the overall picture, which is what really matters when you have to account for the experience you have had. For the review of Distant Wars 2, however, we found ourselves in unpredictable situation, not knowing where to start. On this hand, Distant Wars 2 is 4x best strategy, is which you must be able to build a galactic empire with the ability to pause the action at any time, to manage all aspects of the game. In terms of general objectives, it's not very far from the Stellaris, but going into the details, we are faced with a game of completely different Mantigna, with so many things to do that initially you are completely blown away. Consider that just to create a game it takes several minutes. There are many parameters to consider, so you have to familiarize yourself with the game system, which can be taken several hours, because there are so many elements to consider and the vision of the game that differ enormously to consider the competition. Starting with the possibility of complexity customizing your fleet and own stations down to the smallest components. Here already emerges the basic diversity of the Code Force title from the competitors, because of the customization is not only a static choice but also an economic one. Do you want to create a fleet using components that require certain material? Then you will have to research that material, examining the known planets and asteroids. Can you find any because an opposing empire has taken possession of the large minutes of the same? Then you have to buy it, start a war conquest with unpredictable results. Do you want to rely completely on the merchants who moreover live their activities independently, acting according to the orders of the moment? It is possible to do this, and indeed understanding their behavior is essential to the tribe. Do you want to think all about the other aspects, expect this one? Well, just put it on the hand of artificial intelligence and you can ignore it for the rest of the game. The same applies to any consider and any other sections of the empire, which can be completely automated, including the military one with the specific functions that can be assigned to each fleet, which will therefore be enough to give generic orders, for example set out a conquer of the certain star system, or search for life on the edge of the known space. Of course, artificial intelligence can have some problems, especially in developing overly complex strategies. So, if you have something very specific in mind, it's best to do it manually. For example, if you want to make several fleets coverage on a single target to carry out a joint of simultaneous attack, it's being avoided by automatization, because there is a risk that the fleet start warning in order of arrival, increasing the losses. However, as the empire grows, delegating becomes simply necessary, because managing every single aspect can be counterproductive and make you lose the big picture. Let's face it, the most prominent elements of Distant Wars, the one that will literally adore by it some players, is also the one that will keep many others on a safe distance. If we had to define either rather than strategic 4x, we could call it strategic Photoshop, in the sense that the game system is so wide, varied and full of tools that often the player is not called to understand what to do, but simply has to exploit the means to his disposal, to put his wildest fantasies into the practice. Sure, there are some tactics that seems to work better than others, but it's hard to say which ones. This is the margin experimentation are so wide it's difficult even to try to say how far you can go. When you intend to force the gameplay in a certain direction, sometimes you succeed, sometimes you fail. But in any cases you feel that the choices has been made and effect on what happened on the screen for better or on worse. And this is the strongest point of Distant Wars 2. You never feel that you have been overtaken by the game, but the agency is always very high. To say during a campaign we suffered a surprise attack by an alien of two opposing factions. The fact that attack was precise and ruthless and left us completely blown away, causing us lose some colonies before being able to convert part of fleet to stop enemy advance. There and here We threw a classic CPU trick, but examining the situation carefully, we realized that simply the artificial intelligence had exploited our mistake. That is how underestimated the defense of the certain area of space, thinking that from the part could not have any consequent threat. We were so caught up in expressions on none other words that we allowed enemies to organize and wedge into our colonies, catching us off guard. Furthermore, we also understood that they provoked the opponents, hunting for certain resources, whose trade we had helped back by raising prices. So we are attacked by a rapid fleet, which made us understand how it's advisable to stop the wild expansion to consolidate the territories already colonized. By doing so, we have also discovered that resources we had not taken into the account, and in the long run we have managed to restore a situation of stable equilibrium, which we have been able to maintain a lasting peace, which has guaranteed us a ground that is less threatening for the others. So, from a technical point of view, the Cold Force title unfortunately shows all of its limits. We knew we are not faced with a production that could aspire to have its, say, the graphic on the sound side, but if we combine the crude aspect both in the models and the interface with the underlying complexity, it's clear that it rings being repulsive to some. It should be noted that the interface itself has improved compared to that on the first chapter, but we are still far from being able to call it pleasant. We can guarantee you is that once you enter the game seriously, aesthetic graphic really becomes the last two. But we are always there. Is another obstacle to overcome before you can access something truly magnificent, but which dwells hidden, under a harsh of inexplicable surface. There are also small problems in the missions, which are relocations are impossible to complete due to some bugs. It only happened to us once. So yeah, thank you guys for listening and watching, and don't forget to subscribe, as I said already before in the video. Thumbs up. Peace.